Welcome, fellow horror hounds, and welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, your unholy home for horror. I'm your host, as always, Barry, and I'm joined today by fellow friend and film buff, Pete.
Hi, guys.
Good to have you here, man. Obviously, we're gonna be talking about a film that we both love, aren't we?
Yes,
today.
we are.
Now, this is a film that you actually had the luxury of actually seeing on the big screen upon release, I believe.
I did the night it came out,
which was 97, wasn't it? I think it was released around April, May 97.
It was.
I know it was released in December 1996. We obviously got it a few months later. And that, of course, is Scream. Now, I was obviously too young. I was actually too young to see this on the big screen. But as soon as it came out on VHS, I just watched this film over and over again. I'd probably watched it 4 or 5 times before my mum even returned it to the video store. I think it's safe to say Scream very successfully revived the slasher genre for the 90s.
It certainly did. It was a shot in the arm, and I think it was much needed as well, because at that point, I think things were getting a bit stale.
Yeah. There was a lot of flagging franchises at the time. You know, you had Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare in 91. You had Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday in 93. Michael Myers, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers in 95. And the slasher genre was pretty much dead at this point. It really was. And along came a film called Scream, which very quickly became the highest grossing slasher film of all time. I mean, this film was a big success.
Yeah, and you can understand why. Just because it just completely turned everything on its head and was very self-referential.
Yeah.
Very knowing about the genre, and in some ways a send-up, so it was kind of semi-spoof horror as well.
Yeah.
But still affectionate. And that's clever. That was very clever.
Yeah, it's it's a great slice of postmodern horror. It's like you said, while the film manages to be comedic, it's also it's a film that lovingly pays homage, if you will. It pays tribute to the films of yesteryear. But that in itself, it becomes a solid movie in its own right as well.
Yeah.
A great screenplay, courtesy of Kevin Williamson, who clearly has an ardent love. I mean, you probably know this already, but Halloween, the original 78 Halloween, is his all-time favorite movie. That is the movie that basically inspired him to even write this film.
Yeah. And I know that he didn't have much success with Teaching Mrs. Tingle?
That was his directorial debut, which obviously that film was a flop. But as a writer, just a fantastic screenplay to this film. And, it's a film that, it lovingly paid, even from the opening. The opening to this movie is very much kind of a homage to When a Stranger Calls, if you will. And I think Scream just has one of the greatest openings to any horror film. I think the opening is just so incredibly well written, and kind of like a genius move as well, wasn't it? Like, much like with Alfred Hitchcock casting someone like Janet Leigh, a big name actress, having her killed off like just over a third of the way through the film. Drew Barrymore, one of the biggest actors, if not the biggest actress, the biggest actor in this film, being killed off within the first 10 minutes or so.
Yeah. She was on the poster as well. For goodness sake, it was her face, her screaming face.
Yeah.
To do that. But I also think it was very brave to actually open with such a strong scene, because you're thinking, how on earth can they follow that up? With such a strong opening scene. I mean, have they peaked too soon? How on earth are they going to sustain the momentum?
It's really quite intense, and her death itself, like we said, Scream is a film that manages to be. It manages to be serious when it needs to be, but also, there's a lot of the humor for me really works. It's really well written, incredibly well written, very well directed. I mean, right from the get-go, we realized that, hang on a sec, this is a film that is postmodern, that in this movie, films like Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween exist as films within this film. You know, when obviously the killer phone on the telephone, what's your favorite scary movie? And she's like, Halloween, you know, the one with the guy with the white mask who stalks the babysitters. And then Nightmare on Elm Street gets mentioned. And then we get Friday. That's one thing I will say. When she gets the Friday the 13th question wrong, I have to, like, she saw that film 20 goddamn times. Then she should have known that was Mrs. Voorhees. Because she actually does get that question wrong, doesn't she?
She was under pressure, admittedly.
Yeah,
she was under pressure.
But just the dialogue. I mean, I love the moment, for example, when he says, "So you never told me your name. Why do you want to know my name? Because I want to know who I'm looking at."
Yeah,
just that moment
curdles your blood.
Yeah, if you hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish. Understand?
Oh, terrifying! That just chills you to the marrow.
What do you want? To see what your insides look like?
That's when you know this guy he means business.
Yeah. And of course, interestingly, Roger L. Jackson, who has like the perfect voice as the caller, you know, Ghostface, if you will, was actually kept away from all of the actors on set. They never actually got to meet him or anything. So there was a real sense of anonymity. They had no idea who was actually talking to him, who was on the other end of that telephone. You know,
just so they get a better reaction that way.
And I love when she says, like, who's there? And it's like, you should never say who's there. Don't you watch scary movies? It's a death wish. You may as well come out to investigate a strange noise or something. It just, it addresses, it plays on all the conventions that we've all become so accustomed to.
All the references, and then later on, obviously, that's referred to the rules of the horror film. You don't all the do's.
Randy.
When Randy, he rounds them all off. Never have sex and just everything else, and don't. What's the line?
Don't drink or do drugs, and never, under any circumstances, say "I'll be right back," because you won't be back.
I'll be right back. That's the line. Yeah, I'll be right back.
And then I love the scene, obviously, Matthew Lillard. You know, Stu, I'm just going to go and get another beer. You want one? Yeah, sure. I'll be right back.
I'll be right back.
Great. I mean, we've got to say with this film as well, the casting. Yes. I think everyone fits their role perfectly in this film.
Yes.
I really do.
Well cast.
There are some people out there that I know who aren't keen on Neve Campbell as an actress. I think she makes for a great final girl, if you will. No. I really do. I think Neve Campbell is great in that role. I think Jamie Kennedy as Randy Meeks, the film geek. Matthew Lillard as Stu Macker. Obviously, Skeet Ulrich as Billy Loomis. Even Rose McGowan, you know, as Tatum, as Sydney's best friend as well. Gail and Dewey, David Arquette and Courtney Cox. It's just a great cast.
Brilliant characterizations, really good.
Yeah, and it's what, to me, makes this film stand out from so many other slasher movies, be it past or present, is the characters. The characters prove to be memorable in this, you know, in this film. And I'm sure, like me, you like a good whodunit. You like a good mystery. It keeps you guessing throughout the film. Who is the killer? And obviously, we are going to be getting to spoilers here because I'm going to assume nearly everyone listening has seen Scream. You know, it's been around for like 25 years now. But the two-killer twist, I really did not see coming upon first viewing.
I didn't. No, I didn't either. I just thought there would be one killer. You know, I
thought it was really
for one single second they were in it together. No,
I thought it was really clever, really, really well done. Let's talk about the costume. I think what they basically come up with was an almost instantly iconic costume for a new slasher movie villain. Ghostface. Well, I absolutely love the costume. It's. I mean, you can't really get away from it now. It's.
No.
I went to the convention over the weekend, as you know, and there were loads of people walking around dressed as Ghostface. You know, it's obviously very, very mainstream. But yeah,
and obviously based on the iconic painting.
Yeah, by Edvard Munch. Yeah. Because obviously as well. What's that?
The other thing I was going to say was, I think as well, it almost like it was quite Scooby-Doo-esque. you know, it was the kind of monster that you would expect to see in Scooby-Doo. You know, just that it just had that appeal to it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not a scary costume. It's just a cool costume. It's a really cool looking costume in my eyes. You know, the interesting thing is everyone talks about Ghostface. Now, interestingly, the name Ghostface only gets mentioned once during the course of that film, and it's by Tatum. But that name has just stuck with that franchise now, Ghostface. But interestingly, when you actually see the costume, you actually see the packaging later on during the film. I mean, Dewey shows it to Sheriff Burke. The costume was called Father Death. That was actually the name of the actual costume in that. But it's like Ghostface has become a character in their own right. When people talk about, oh, Michael Myers versus Ghostface, who would win? I'm like, Ghostface isn't one killer. Ghostface is merely a persona, a costume that multiple killers put on.
That's right.
But you couple it with the costume and the voice on the phone, and it's almost like Ghostface has become a character in his own right.
Yeah, you just don't know whose face is behind the mask, who's inhabiting it at that particular moment.
And that's what I really like about the Scream franchise, is that whodunit aspect. I really do like that, because we very quickly led to believe. And again, another great telephone interaction is when the killer phones up Sydney for the first time. And it's like, you know, Scary Night, isn't it? It's like right out of a horror movie or something. And she instantly thinks it's Randy. And then there's that moment like, so if you're not Randy, who are you? It's like, the question isn't, who am I? The question is, where am I? So where are you? Your front porch. I just love the dialogue, man. You know,
it's brilliant. And I think that's the beauty of the film too, because it's got the balance right between humor and horror, and very similar to Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street, when you didn't know whether they were dreaming or whether they were awake. Threw you off guard. Similarly, you just don't know when the jokes are coming and when the horror is happening. It can switch in the flick of an eye.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many great lines. I could sit here just quoting. You know, I love the scene when they're outside the fountain. You know, we get a basic instinct. I mean, there are so many movies referenced in this film. You know, obviously we got, like I said, Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, all mentioned the opening. Billy Loomis, obviously her boyfriend, who very quickly becomes the prime suspect, you know, dropping his cellular phone. Makes you laugh though, doesn't it? Because he's caught going through the window. His mobile drops, and then Sheriff Burke's like, what are you doing with a cellular telephone? Like, it makes you a suspect instantly now if you've got a mobile phone. So, but the movie very quickly points its finger at Billy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it just looks way too obvious. You know, it looks way too obvious.
I did get a feeling, I did think that there was something quite sinister about him, because he was quite skulky and quite, I don't know, there was something about his attitude and mannerism.
Yeah, he's quite a contrast to Stu, because Stu's very kind of like off the wall and, you know, kind of out there. I actually met both of them at the convention this weekend, and I'll tell you now, they're like that in real life. Matthew Lillard is the more out there and vocal and all that, and Skeet does seem more laid back and a little more quiet and of the two. Yeah, Matthew Lillard is quite a character, very kind of charismatic. But yeah, so the scene where he comes through the bedroom, that in itself, by the way, is actually a homage to A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
When Glenn and it's one of the reasons apparently Skeet Ulrich was cast, because apparently, I kind of see it myself a little, he resembles Johnny Depp a bit. Some people have said he looks a bit like Johnny Depp. And I'm not sure if you noticed this, because obviously we get an Exorcist reference there as well, doesn't he? He makes up, you know, he says that he was at home, the Exorcist was on, and it got him reminding of, you know, of her, because it was cut for TV, you know, and like their relationship started off hot and heavy, and it's kind of been edited, and there's, I'm not sure if you what's that?
The PG-13 reference.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm sure you remember, like, obviously the scene, they're kind of getting it on. Did you, have you noticed what song actually plays in the background to their making out scene?
I can't remember.
It's actually a ballad version of Don't Fear the Reaper.
Is it?
Which, of course, Don't Fear the Reaper was featured in Halloween, one of my all-time favourite songs, actually. In a way, as well, you know, if you want to, like, really dissect it, it's kind of foreshadowing. Don't fear the Reaper. And she's right there with Billy.
And she's right there with him.
Who's one of the ghost faces. You know, another... We've got to talk about, I mean, the director, Wes Craven. I think Wes Craven, after this, really needed a hit because Wes Craven's New Nightmare came out a couple of years before this. Now, I love that movie. I love Wes Craven's New Nightmare. But it was by no means a box office success. And for it is a very divisive film, isn't it? Some people really like it. Some people really don't care for that movie because I think it was considered just a little bit too meta. And a lot of people just didn't really kind of get it.
I think it was maybe ahead of its time.
Yeah. I think Randy in Scream 2 sums it up, and actually in a line that he comes out with. He actually says in the exchange with Dewey, he actually says, if you get too complicated, you lose your target audience. And I think that's what Wes Craven's New Nightmare did. It lost some of its audience members.
I think so. I think they just felt it went a bit too far. You know, and they maybe thought, no, that's messing with something that we have accepted as fantasy. So you can't have that blend. That is just not working for us. But really, it was ahead of its time.
It was. And I as soon as I saw it, it was released at the end of 94. I was probably about 13, 14 when I saw it. I loved it. I just loved how inventive it was. I just loved for how different it was, how it kind of stood out from the crowd. And it's funny, really, because in the earlier exchange, when Casey is on the telephone and he says, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street, he's like, is that the one with the guy with the knives for fingers? She goes like, yeah, Freddy, that's right. I like that movie. It was scary. And she says, well, the first one was, but the rest sucked. Is that Wes Craven's New Nightmare? Sorry, is that Wes Craven, like, in a way, dissing his own movie? Because he did direct New Nightmare.
Yeah, I think it's maybe reflecting a lot of what the audience, and that's because that raises a chuckle within the audience. And I can remember when I went to see the film and everybody was laughing at that bit because they could relate to it, because they maybe felt the same.
Yeah.
At that time, you know, because they knew the first one was so good, so well done, that the rest started to, you know, get a bit.
I think Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 is regarded as a fan favourite, isn't it? The third film especially. I mean, I know some people that even prefer the third film over the original.
So do I.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great sequel. I really do. And I'll be honest, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, when that came out in 85, I've come to appreciate it more. I wouldn't say I'm really a big fan of it, but I really disliked it when I first watched it. But I've actually come to like it more with repeated viewings. I like the darker edge that film has. I like the fact that Freddy is dark, very dark, tonally speaking. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously, homoeroticism throughout the film, isn't there? I mean, that's almost impossible to ignore. But the movie itself, Freddy is dark and really quite scary in that film.
Yeah. Yes. Similar in Part 2 as well. There's like slightly some homoeroticism. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. So it's carried forward into that, but it's miles better than Part 5. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's
and Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. He's just a cartoon character, isn't he? He's a Looney Tunes character by that film. He's just Robert Englund is
the Dream Child.
Part 5.
Aye.
That's where the franchise was really starting to going downhill. By the sixth film, it's just a comedy. You know, you can tell Robert Englund was absolutely having a hell of a time, though. He was relishing every moment as Freddy Krueger. You know, he cemented himself. But yeah, getting back to like Scream, the opening is impactful. Her death, Casey Becker's death, is just quite simply one of the most memorable opening deaths in any horror film.
It's horrific.
And what really adds to it for me is Marco Beltrami's score, the music. I'd never seen this film on the big screen before, and obviously I went, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I think it was. I saw it on the big screen. Just that score, that music, and obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like her hanging from the tree was kind of a nod to Suspiria.
Yeah,
that's what it certainly felt like.
It looked like it was straight out a European horror film. Yeah, definitely.
Her parents,
the juddering image, just in the lightning flash, and very much so.
Her parents coming home, seeing her, and Casey, baby, she's hearing her daughter dying while she's on the telephone. And there's no way in a million years they would have been able to hang her up that quick and whatever. But and then they get out and they see her hanging, and it's quite the opening.
It is, and she tries to call for help, but she can't. And
is that because her lung had been punctured?
I think so. That's what I took from it, Barry. Yeah, that's what I took. Yeah, she's like, you can hear the weakness, and she's trying to shout "mom" or "help," and it's awful. And knowing that you're so close to getting help, but you can't get it. Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Also, talk about like the characters, like, because Linda Blair has a cameo in this film as a news report. She actually appears in a couple of scenes. The second scene, it makes me laugh. It actually makes me laugh every time I see it. It's where she goes up to Sydney, and she's like, "How does it feel to be almost brutally butchered? The people have a right to know." Like, you've got somebody's just nearly been killed. And you've got, what's it like to be almost brutally butchered? Everyone has a right. I'm like, that scene always makes me laugh. It's just like, Jesus Christ.
And then, of course, Wes Craven in it as well.
Janitor. Great cameo. Love that cameo. Because he's actually the janitor, and his name is Fred, and he's wearing the hat with the striped jersey.
God, that beats anything that Hitchcock did, that's for sure.
It's a great cameo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Principal Himbry, played by none other than the Fonz.
I know.
Who interestingly is uncredited, as you probably know, because he didn't want to be associated with a horror movie. So even though he stars in it, he didn't want it to be credited. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I think upon a first-time viewing, probably maybe a suspect for some people. And I'm not sure
that was another reason. I think that was another reason he wasn't credited, because they didn't want him to be seen as too obvious a suspect or a red herring. Sure, I read that somewhere.
Okay.
So I think that was another reason too.
Well, did you see his Fonz jacket?
Because
I'll be honest, right? It took a few viewings to actually notice that, but when he opens his closet, for a quick couple of seconds, he's actually got a jacket. It's actually in that closet.
I think because I grew up, well, obviously I'm older than you, and I remember Happy Days and the Fonz. Everybody wanted to be the Fonz.
Yeah.
Because he was the cool dude, So yeah, when he came on the screen, the first thing I went was, "Oh my God, the Fonz is in it." So I think you were so aware and looking out, for all these things.
Yeah.
And there it was. But yeah, brilliant, inspired casting.
Yeah, there is absolutely no way, by the way, that the killer would have been able to get away from that door so quick. I actually thought that when I first watched it. When they knocked the first time and he opens the door, okay, there's a good 5-6 second pause. The second time, it's literally no longer than 2 seconds. Mm-hmm. And I've always wondered, where the hell did that killer go? Because the second knock, he opens that door almost immediately, and the killer is nowhere to be seen. I'm not sure if they've discovered the Michael Myers teleportation trick or whatever, but obviously then the killer, he gets killed. Because I know some people have said, why was he killed? Because now I read into this, is that basically, if not for Principal Himbry's death, there would have been quite a big gap throughout the film of seeing no ghost face, of no killings going on. So they just had to kind of like add to the numbers. That's why Principal Himbra's death actually occurs. But there's also another logical reason to it, I think, as well. At the party near the end of the film, they get the telephone call saying that Principal Himbra is being hung up by the goalposts. Mm-hmm. So it was a way of getting all them characters, all them teens away from the party. So for the final climax showdown of the movie.
So it was a plot device as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, I mean, at least that's the theory I've come up with. It was used as a distraction way to kind of get them away. Rose McGowan, there's a line I like in the film that she comes out with. It's when, obviously, because Cotton Weir is inside, isn't he, for the rape and murder of Maureen Prescott. But then Sidney becomes convinced the killer is still out there. And I like what Tatum says to her. She says, "You're starting to sound like some Wes Carpenter flick."
Do you know, I can't remember that.
Yeah, so he's got like Wes Craven and John Carpenter both thrown in together in that one line.
See, there you go. That's another like sort of poke at itself, you know, the self-referential humour.
Yeah, there is a scene. There is a moment in that scene. There's actually a couple of moments in the film that I do have kind of like a little bit of a nitpick with, which doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't like butcher the film or anything. But that scene when she's outside talking to her, we see someone in the Ghostface costume in broad daylight come around the corner. Why would anyone be wearing that Ghostface costume, walking about in the street, broad daylight, after the murders? And then the grocery store is the biggest one. They go into the grocery store and they're going around, and then you see the reflection of Ghostface in like the fridge reflection. And I'm thinking, hang on a second, this person has walked into a grocery store wearing the Ghostface costume in broad daylight around presumably a lot of people. Why would you?
I actually think that would be Wes Craven just playing with his audience. I think that's just messing with you because it's giving you an expectation of something that doesn't happen. You're maybe thinking, is that
you wouldn't do it though, would you? If you were the killer, you wouldn't put on that costume and go walking around in broad daylight. Not when
but then again, who's to say that was the killer?
Well, we're just led to believe. We're kind of led, but again, it's kind of I get it. It's kind of a Michael Myers aesthetic because presumably the Ghostface killer is kind of stalking Sidney Prescott. Now, I don't know about you, but when I first watched this film, and having seen this film many times, to me, the most painted, obvious suspect in this movie, aside from, say, Billy, is actually Dewey. When you first watch this film, this movie points its fingers on many occasions at Dewey, and a lot of them are quite subtle little hints. For example, when Sidney gets the telephone call at Tatum's house, the telephone call ends. She's like, "Who are you? Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough, I promise." Dewey comes out of his room right after the telephone call ends. Mm-hmm. When, after the grocery store bit, Sheriff Burke says to Dewey, "Where have you been?" "I've just been keeping an eye on Sid." Mm-hmm. You know, and he says to him, "Oh, guess what? Neil Prescott's telephone's been, the telephone's been cloned. No, sorry, the telephone calls have come from Sidney's father." And you want to see the look on Dewey's face. Kind of like that. And when he says goodbye to Sidney, when he takes her to the party, he's like, "See you, Sid." Yeah. So many fingers point towards Dewey in that movie.
Yeah. And there's a scene as well when he's startled, he's holding the mask up and startled at the door. And you're thinking, is that of some significance?
Yeah, and the other big one is when he asks Gail if she wants to go for a walk. He says, "I fancy what, it's a nice night," and that. And he shines the flashlight on his face, and he's like, he goes, "What's up? You're not scared, are you?" Like that. That's
right. I remember that. Yeah,
I did. When I first watched Scream, Dewey was my suspect. Dewey was.
I think I was between Dewey and Randy.
Oh, yeah. See, Randy on paper is the obvious one. He's the huge film geek. He's the massive movie-obsessed geek. He even says, doesn't he, if this was a scary movie, I'd be the prime suspect. He actually says that. I liked that sequence, by the way.
It's really good. Really good.
Yeah, the video store. When he says, when Billy, he's like, he goes, what's wrong with that? He goes, if you were the prime suspect in a senseless bloodbath, would you be stood there in the horror section? While Billy stood there chatting to them girls and that.
That's right. Yeah. Clever, very clever.
And what is it again? About motive. What is it again? Motives are incidental. He goes, there's always some bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend. Maybe Sydney wouldn't have sex with him. And Stu's like, what? She's saving herself for you? Maybe. Now that Billy tried to mutilate her, do you think Sydney will now have sex with me? Yeah, I've obviously seen this film way too many goddamn times. But
it's been a long time since I've seen it. I did see it that opening night, but I went back 5 times.
Wow.
That same year, I did with different people.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen it upon release day. I really would.
It's really
but I wouldn't. That's the thing, though. My 15/16-year-old self would have really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't have appreciated as much as I do now, because I wasn't anywhere near the horror big fan that I am now. So a lot of the references and all that would have just gone straight over my head.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah,
like, I love the moment as well, very meta, when Jamie is left there in the house. Sorry, Jamie Kennedy, Randy's sitting there and he's watching Halloween. And it's the scene, Laura, and he's like, look behind you, Jamie, look behind you, while the Ghostface killer is sneaking up behind him.
That's so clever.
And the great irony is he's talking about Jamie Lee Curtis and his name's Jamie. Turn around, Jamie.
And there you go, right behind you. So yeah, that's juxtaposed against, it's like reality, real life versus real life.
Yeah.
You know, different spellings. Yeah.
Did you know that was Skeet Ulrich's one scene in the Ghostface costume?
Yeah, that's
right. Yeah, that was
actually
Skeet. That was Skeet Ulrich. I'm not sure if Matthew Lillard actually had any scenes in the Ghostface costume, but I know that was, even Wes Craven was in there at one point.
I think so. I think they all had it.
Yeah, Wes Craven is the one that got hit with a phone by Casey Becker, the one that actually smashes through the window and she hits him.
God, that's very Dario Argento, isn't it?
He got a bruise. Yeah, he actually got a bruise for his efforts in that scene. And to create a level of authenticity, because, you know, Drew Barrymore did great in that scene, to get her crying and all that, she's actually a huge animal rights activist. And Wes Craven had purposely told her loads of stories about animals being hurt and neglected and all that to try and get her emotionally.
He did, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. Aye, because she looked goddamn upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only learned a little while ago as well that Skeet Ulrich's girlfriend was in the film. She was, do you remember the 2 girls who were in the bathroom, and they're actually... one of them in particular is slating Sydney and her mum, and her mother was an SLUT.
Yes, I do.
I didn't realise that blonde girl was Skeet Ulrich's girlfriend at the time.
Oh, I didn't know. Didn't know
I
either.
What's your thoughts on that scene? So you got the bathroom scene. So she goes in there, and you hear this, Sydney. And obviously the killer is in one of the, what are they called? Like the cubicles. Was that the killer to you? Do you think that was a killer, or was that merely a prank?
Could have been. It could have. I don't know. It could have been. Could have been either way. I think that's the thing. That's why I think the film is so clever and subtle, because it keeps you on your toes all the time, and you're never sure whether this is, oh boy, is that really the person, or is it somebody just, winding her up.
I took that scene as a prank. I
thought I would be more inclined to think it was a prank.
Yeah. I took it as a prank because, there was no knife. There was seemingly no weapon there. There wasn't really an attempt in killing it. It was more to scare her. But then again, slight little nip, just to dissect the scene and that. How the hell did they know that Sidney Prescott was even going to go in that bathroom? How did they know she was even in there?
followed her in.
Yeah. But again, another little moment, because you see the shoes, don't you? The killer steps down, you see the Ghostface costume come on.
Yes, and that's right.
I'm sure you noticed this, but when Dewey is talking to Sheriff Burke and he puts out his cigarette, the camera focuses on his shoes as he's putting out the cigarette. So I even believe in that one scene, just that one little moment, that it's thinking, hang on a sec, could be the sheriff here.
Aye, it's clever the way.
Otherwise, why show you that shot? Because Sheriff Burke, Joseph Whipp, the actor that plays him, you probably already know this, was in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
He was the cop that John Saxon told to watch over his daughter.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously another scene in the film that I think is a real standout is Tatum, Rose McGowan, being killed in the cat flap.
Yeah, the garage. Oh wow, yeah, that's so unforeseen. You just know that something's going to happen, but you don't actually expect it to go that way.
Yeah, broken net. Do you know what though? Every time I see that scene now, it's a definite highlight. But every time I see that scene, I always think of the parody in Scary Movie.
Do you know I have
Big
actually? I've avoided those films.
Well, you're one of the lucky ones, then. they're not good, but
I think I only saw one. And that was enough. I just thought,
I'm not. I just
felt like a traitor. Nah, felt like a
traitor. There's 5 of them. There's 5 of them in that franchise. But I will admit, there is one scene in the first film that makes me laugh because she's a big girl and she's trying to fit through the cat flap.
Oh God, that would never work.
But I love it with Dewey, with Tatum. She's like, "What movie is this from? I Spit on Your Garage." See, I wouldn't have got that. My younger self wouldn't have got that because when I was 15, 16, I didn't know I Spit on Your Grave. I didn't know that movie.
No, neither you should, I suppose. Because that was one of the nasties.
That was a video.
I remember it because I grew up at that time, so that was one of the Driller Killer, and
which was just the year after, wasn't it? 79, Driller Killer.
Yeah, and Zombie Flesh Eaters the same year. They were all the video nasties, subject to the banning. The DDP, the banned list. They drew up a list of all the titles that had to be withdrawn.
Yeah.
So those were the 2 biggies.
Yeah, I Spit on Your Grave. Yeah, it's, I'll admit, I only saw it for the very first time a few years ago. I've actually seen the remake, the 2010 remake as well, and it's not really my kind of thing. It's I can fully understand why it caused so much controversy though when it came out.
Oh, for sure.
It's really easy to see why. And the 2010 film though, because we're living in far more violent times, and you can get away with so much more in cinema now. And the remake makes the original look like a Disney film, doesn't it, in comparison?
Yeah,
because of the time.
I never bothered. Yeah, I just never bothered with the remake at all.
No.
I don't know.
But yeah, with Scream as well. One thing also, I actually pointed this out to someone else a while back. Dewey and Tatum are brother and sister, but after she's killed, aside from one name drop in Scream 2, we never actually hear of Tatum again.
No.
In the whole franchise, which is kind of weird because that's Dewey's sister. You'd think there'd become some kind of I know they didn't exactly have the best of relationships. You can tell that in the film. But there's no mention, Sydney doesn't mention her. That was her best friend at the time. And yeah, Tatum's kind of killed off and stuff. But yeah, I love the sequence, that whole, because I don't know if you saw, Stu's house where the climax takes place. You can actually visit there.
Can you?
Yeah, you can actually. I think you can spend the night.
Oh,
it's actually already become a part of horror history now. That house, and yeah, it's like a really
like the Elm Street house, really. I suppose, and the Psycho house.
Yes,
up there the best.
Or Michael Myers' childhood home. Yeah, childhood home. But yeah, it's a really big house. I mean, I'd love to absolutely go there, because I've got to quickly mention this as well. The Scream trailer Obviously, we're getting a fifth film in January, aren't we?
Yes.
I assume you've seen the trailer, haven't you?
Yes, I have indeed. Yes.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Stu's house is in the trailer. We're back in Stu's house.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that's where I think people are putting two and two together. Some people are actually convinced that Stu is involved somehow, that Stu may very well be alive still. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
Has potential, but what's my view on the trailer? Looking
what's your thoughts on, for one, Stu? What do you think there's any chance that Stu? I mean, bearing in mind, right, this will be 25 years, 25 years since he was killed. If he was to come back, how do you explain that? I mean, how do you explain a 25-year gap? Where the hell's he been?
I don't know, but I don't so much know about Stu returning, but I think there's going to be some connection to Stu.
Yeah.
But what that is, I don't know. But I don't think it's Stu himself, if that makes sense. But
no, I agree. I definitely think
there's some association.
There is a connection. There is definitely going to be some connection that takes us back to the first film in some shape, way, or form. Whether it's Stu, whether it's Billy,
so as well.
But because I think you, like me, you liked the trailer, right? You thought the trailer was good, yeah?
I did. I did. I thought it was really, yeah. I mean, it definitely makes you want to see it, which is something that all good trailers should do. It should make you want to see the film. But I would say the tone of it looks quite mean-spirited. There doesn't seem to be any humour at all.
It does seem to have a darker edge to it, a somewhat more serious tone. Now, at the end of the day, though, trailers can be very misleading. You know, because you've got to bear in mind the trailer's been put together like that. There's a lot of stuff in between. But yeah, going by the trailer, it does seem to have a more serious edge to it. And you know what? I'm all for that because the reason I'm all for that is you're not going to be able to replicate what the first film or even Scream 2 did. Scream came around at a time when the slasher film needed to be revived, and postmodern horror was kind of a new thing at the time. You know, and I just don't think there's any point in trying to replicate. And I don't want a film that's going to be overly meta. And they've actually said that this film isn't going to be overly meta. So
no, we certainly don't want a retread of what's going.
What's that?
We don't want a repeat performance. We don't want a repeat performance of what we have seen before. But all the same, I think fans would expect some injection of sly humor.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I would like to see that, because that's showing some affection for the franchise.
Yeah, I understand, because I mean they did say cast and crew have actually said that this film is going to pay a lot of respect to Wes Craven. In what way, I have no idea. But apparently Wes Craven, the way they're talking is Wes Craven would be proud of this film. He'd like this film. And the directors did direct Ready or Not, which I thought was great fun. I really liked Ready or Not. Again, it was a horror movie, but there was a lot of comedy in there. It was comedic. It didn't take itself too seriously. But obviously, Kevin Williamson hasn't wrote this. I'm not quite sure to what capacity he's worked on in this film. If he's a producer, I think he might be a producer, but he hasn't written. It's not his screenplay. So that alone tells me that maybe, because Scream and Scream 2, I think, was so well written. I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's reassuring if he's got some input.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because you just feel as though you're in good hands. You know, and there's going to be some loyalty to the fans. Yeah, and it'll still do, you know, it'll do the franchise justice.
Yeah, I'm all on board to see a more serious tone. I really am, because don't get me wrong, I expect humor with a character like Dewey in there. I mean, it's hard to imagine Dewey being straight-laced from start to finish, to be quite honest. I think Dewey's kind of become a very comedic character, whether you're kind of laughing with him or laughing at him. He's almost become a parody. I mean, I still firmly believe he should have died in the fourth film, personally. But it feels like they're afraid to take them risks, because when Jamie Kennedy was killed, Randy in Scream 2, which again was quite the gut punch, quite an unexpected death, if you will, they have kind of played it safe since, because Wes Craven received hate mail. As ridiculous as it is, he received hate mail for killing off Randy. So that's why I feel they've been afraid to kill off Gail Dewey. And I want this film to take them risks. I really do. I don't want them to play it safe again.
No, I don't think they should play it safe. No, but I would like to see, I think it would be nice to see a nice balance, you know, without maybe, you know, the amount of humour that was in the first film that we've come to know and appreciate, but perhaps some element of humour and maybe some in-joke references.
Yeah,
I think they would be welcome.
Yeah, as long as we're not bashed across the head with it.
No, oh God, no. Yeah. We don't want that. No.
And it got a bit like I think it's really with the third film, which is still the weakest in the franchise, in my opinion. Scream 3 was starting to become just a little bit too meta for its own good. And it was almost like it was becoming a parody of itself at times.
I think, yes, it did.
Scream 4, I thought, was an improvement, but that's when Kevin Williamson was back on board writing, you see. Aaron Kruger's writing talents just couldn't quite match Williamson's, I didn't feel.
No.
His screenplay. What's that?
4 was definitely slicker, you know, more polished.
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like I'm in the minority, because most people I speak to, they really don't like 4. And interestingly, 4 was the lowest grossing. When Scream 4 came out 11 years after the third, it did okay. It did all right at the box office, but it didn't make as much money as they'd have hoped. And I think that's one of the reasons, aside from like Wes Craven, you know, passing away, it's one of the reasons I've been a little hesitant with this franchise. It's like the fourth one made less money. Is this franchise still going to make good money?
I think so.
I think it has the potential to. I'm really hoping this film does well.
I think so. Yeah, and I think with the the release of the Halloween films as well, you know, that's going to be a bit of a boost for the genre. I think really.
Yeah.
People are getting back into, you know, that kind of old school, but obviously they've upped the ante in terms of violence.
Well,
and I think that's going to be the same here.
Well, like with Halloween, you know, had so many films, didn't it, kind of following in its footsteps, you know, Friday the 13th, Terror Train, My Bloody Valentine, the list just goes on and on. Scream had the same. Because, you know, within a few months, you had I Knew What You Did Last Summer. Then you had Urban Legend, you had Cherry Falls, Valentine, all of these slasher films were just coming out. And there does seem to be a little bit of a slasher boom kind of coming back. Like you said, with Halloween 2018, which is now the highest grossing slasher film of all time, it actually dethroned Scream, was a big success. And Halloween Kills, obviously we're going to talk about that soon, aren't we? Halloween Kills. Yes. I'm interested to hear what you think on that film, man.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's quite divisive. It's quite divisive. I know some people that really liked it, and I know some people that really didn't.
Okay. I'll not say anything until then.
Yeah, keep me in suspense, man. But another thing with Scream as well, I love. Scream to me has one of the best final chase sequences in any slasher film.
Yeah.
When Billy is killed, the whole moment from there, Ghostface pursuing her. Love the whole sequence, man.
Yeah. Super.
Jumps from the window, gets in the car, he comes at the back seat, very kind of Michael Myers-like. And then obviously the moment she's trying to get in the car, and then, you know, he taps on the window, he's got the keys.
It's a horror, it's like a ghost train thrill ride of a film. That's the way I would describe it, you know.
Yeah.
Because It's very exciting and scary, funny. You just don't know. It's got everything. You know, it's got all the ingredients, all the perfectly ingredients. You know, to make a film work.
Yeah.
Effectively, and you can't predict. That's the thing. It's unpredictable. You just don't know what direction it's going to take.
No, well, that's the thing. That's brings me to the next point, the big reveal of like Billy not being dead, you know, and then Stu's flipped out. Stu's gone mad. We all go a little mad sometimes. Yeah. Anthony Perkins, Psycho
reference.
Quote, and then corn syrup, same stuff. Corn syrup, blood and Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's right.
He does actually. Billy Loomis in the film. He might not be as movie obsessed or seemingly as movie obsessed as Randy, but he does make movie references quite a bit during the film.
He's very knowledgeable. He knows his stuff. He
talks about Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. It's like when she keeps having flashbacks of her dead father, and he mentions The Exorcist. But he's just not in your face like Randy is.
No,
but he's obviously, got good movie knowledge. So that reveal, as soon as he comes down the stairs bleeding, that's when I thought, hang on a sec.
I know.
Hang on. If he's not dead, like, hang on, there must be another killer. There's got to be two killers. And and the Matthew Lillard. Now, I'm sure you've noticed this, but obviously the voice on the phone, Roger L. Jackson, the voice changer sounds nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
When they actually talk, surprise, Sydney.
Yes, I know. You're thinking that's not the voice at all.
No, because this is the thing, right? When my younger self, when I watched that film, I'm like, I want a voice changer. I seriously want a voice. And I bought one, and I'm like, this is, I don't sound anything like the...
No, definitely not. I mean, I can more or less excuse that away by thinking, well, it would sound different if you were hearing it on the receiver, you know, as opposed to him actually doing it right there and then. You're hearing it live, you're hearing him do it. So I kind of made that excuse, but I know what you're saying. Yeah,
I was like, we just, because the funny thing is, caller ID went up by threefold after Scream. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Caller ID went up. People were phoning. People were making a lot of telephone calls. Like, you know, what's your favorite scary movie?
I believe it.
Yeah, it became
people.
What's that?
Just really serious pranking people.
I'll admit. I'll confess.
Did you?
I did it a few times.
Oh, naughty.
I did. As soon as I watched the film, as soon as I saw Scream, I was like, do you know what? I want that costume. I really want that Ghostface costume. And I still do. I would like, but if you want like a movie authentic robe like it looks in the films, you're looking at a few £100. You're looking at £400, £500 or so.
Because it's got that Grim Reaper look about it, isn't it? You know, really.
Yeah. The climax of the film, this is the scene where I think, and Matthew Lillard was great in the whole film, but this is to me where he knocks it out of the park. He is absolutely brilliant, and we realise just how goddamn crazed he is. And Billy right at the end.
He's absolutely crackers.
It's a Scream, baby. And do you remember that moment where he's literally drooling at the mouth? He's like, see, we're going to stay around and plan the sequel because these days you got to have a sequel. And he's literally drooling.
I know. See, I must admit, that scene, that did raise a gasp. The actual revelation of the killers did raise a gasp in the audience that I saw it with. Yeah. They were really not expecting there to be two killers.
No, it was great.
And I don't, that film, that scene, because there was so much blood on their fingers, it actually made me feel quite sick.
Okay.
That scene, you know, so that such was the potency of it, you know, and again, that was the switch from, so you wanted to laugh at his jokes, but at the same time, you're thinking that this guy is a complete and utter psycho. And it was just the blood, and it was so messy, you know, because when they were killing each other, stabbing one another.
Yeah. It's very homoerotic almost. There's some definite kind of homoeroticism going on there.
Like this sort of love pact thing that they've got going on. Yeah.
It's like when he's ready to stab, he's like, I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. Yeah. Do you remember? Get it. And he's like, he's proper like into it. Now, the thing is, right, again, another moment that makes me laugh. It's like, what is it? We did your mum a favour. Your mum was flashing her shit all over town like she was Sharon Stone or something. And Matthew Lillard, Stu's like, well, let's face it, Sid, your mum was no Sharon Stone. Huh? And then when she she lost her virginity. And it's like, you're no longer a virgin. Ooh, I said virgin. It just cracks me up every time, man. Matthew. Now, the thing is, as comical and goofy as Matthew Lillard is, I think it can be argued that he's the scarier of the two.
Oh, now, completely.
Why would you say?
I just think because he was so unpredictable, because you're thinking, wait a minute, he's making all these jokes. He's behaving like a complete psycho. This guy is capable of anything, whereas you felt, even though Billy was a bit more kind of sinister, you felt
you could tell he was kind of like the brains of the operation, if you will. He's the cold calculating one.
He's the one that would have to have a plan.
Stu's the wingman. Stu's the wingman.
Yeah. But Stu would break all the rules and just do his own thing. And I think that made him more of a threat.
Yeah. I think the reason I found Stu like scarier in terms of thing is Billy has a clear-cut motive. The motive is obviously revenge. Good old-fashioned revenge. Obviously, her mum, Sydney's mum, slept with his father, caused his mum to move out, and he blames her and her family. But look at the facial expression on Stu when Billy reveals this. Stu had no idea. He didn't even know about the revenge plot. Stu was in it for the sheer fun of it.
Just went along for the ride.
Yeah. That he had no motive. Stu had no motive whatsoever, really, to go along with these killings, whereas Billy actually had a motive. There was actually a game plan there.
And that's what makes it so terrifying.
Yeah. I love the other line he comes out with. What is it? Watch a few movies, take a few notes. It was fun. A great climax, a great climax to the film. And I just love how, again, getting back to meta, when Randy comes along and Randy's like, careful, this is the moment where the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare. And then Billy's, jumps up and shoot him in the head.
That's right.
And she's like, not in my movie. I like when, because he's believed to be dead after getting shot, and Randy, she goes, Randy, you're alive. Yep, I am. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin. But obviously we find out between Scream and Scream 2, he lost his virginity, hence why he's killed in Scream 2 and that.
That's right.
I just think it's just such a clever film, and I know some people don't like it because it's very mainstream. Scream was like a big success and it was commercial, very commercial. But so what? If a film's good, whether it's commercial or not, as long as it's a good movie, as long as it's well written, well acted, whatever.
I think it came along at the right time, because I thought the genre was dying at that time.
Yeah,
really was.
It did. It's, to me, it's hands down, for me personally, the best slasher movie of the 90s.
Yes.
And it is it's the only film from around that time period that actually gets into my top 10 slasher movies of all time. Scream to me is one of my favorite slasher movies.
It's a very important film because it came at the right time. And I think Wes Craven was sensible in approaching it from the angle that he did.
Yeah.
And just coming at it from a completely different direction and thinking, right, we need to reinvent this thing because it's getting stale. Everybody's just going to go, I've seen that before. Seen that back in the 70s. early 80s. We don't want to see it now.
No.
It's 1997, so, and that's why he done it.
It's knowing, isn't it? It makes a little wink. It makes a wink to the audience. Look, it's letting you know that, look, you all know the rules, you know the cliches, you know the conventions. Yeah. We're just going to address it, and we're going to just have some fun with it. We're going to put a spin on it. Like the moment where he says to Sydney, "Do you like scary movies?" And she's like, "What's the point? They're all the same. Some big-breasted girl who can't act running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting." And then what happens? She actually tries going out the front door, doesn't she?
Yeah,
she breaks them, but she can't get out. The killer goes for her, and she ends up running up the stairs, following in the footsteps of all the,
I mean, it's really, but it's breaking the fourth wall in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's more or less them, the real life, it's different spellings of the word real, and getting that balance and the juxtaposition of the kind of two realities.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is good. Aye.
Did you know that Quentin Tarantino actually said this? I saw an interview, must have been around about 3 or 4 years ago. Did you know that he said that Scream, he didn't really think, I think he said something along the lines of Scream, he didn't think he was that good. He could have done a better job than Craven.
Did they say that?
Yeah. No, Quentin Tarantino. I can't remember word for word, but I do remember definitively him saying that he would have done a better job than Wes Craven making that film.
Not a chance.
You probably know as well that originally it was going to be called Scary Movie. That was the original title.
That was the working title, yeah.
Yeah. There's also, I'm not sure if this is a little known fact, but this is kind of interesting actually. The original high school that they were going to film at, they pulled out and said, look, no, you can't make your movie here, because they found out it was a horror movie that they were going to be filming. And at the end of the credits, it actually says, "And no thanks whatsoever to Santa Rosa High School."
I remember reading that in an article.
Yeah, they were really annoyed because they were supposed to be filming there. Then they found, no, you can't film a horror movie here. You can't do it. And they put that at the end of the credits.
Being credited for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think Kevin Williamson, from what I know, Kevin Williamson as well, when he wrote the screenplay, I think from what I remember reading, he basically locked himself in his hotel room and all he did was listen to the Halloween soundtrack over and over again. I know he saw that film as a young kid and it absolutely terrified him, but it quickly became his favorite movie, of all time.
And it was only fitting that Wes Craven take it on board.
And it must also be noted as well that the opening, when the parents arrive home and they say, the husband tells the wife to go to the Mackenzies. The Mackenzies is Halloween. That's where Laurie tells Tommy and Lindsay to go.
Lindsay, that's right. Yeah. Go to the Mackenzie house. Mm-hmm.
And then in Halloween H20, it comes back on itself. Laurie tells her son, John, to go to the Beckers. Casey Becker, Scream.
Yeah, right.
Even the name, isn't it? Billy Loomis. Loomis is a nod to both Psycho and Halloween.
It is. It's just everything. I mean, there's probably things that I have missed, but
there is a lot. There is a lot of stuff. I did a solo podcast on it a while back, and I tried to get as much in there as I could, but there is so much. There is so much around that film. I'll give you another example. A horror movie I'd never heard of mentioned in Scream, that Scream made me want to search out this film, and that was The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Oh, yeah.
Released in 1976. Good film.
Based on a true story.
Yeah, the Phantom of Texarkana, who right. I believe the murders are still actually officially unsolved to this day.
Yeah, it's a good film.
Yeah, I bought it. I bought it on Blu-ray about a year or so ago. But even Scream itself is loosely based on a real life killer. I think Wes Craven had actually, what's the killer? Danny Rowland, the Gainesville Ripper.
The Gainesville Ripper, yeah.
who murdered 5 students over the course of a weekend, 4 female, 1 male. And again, that was kind of like very loose inspiration behind the murders and that in the film. But yeah, like Terror Train, that was another one mentioned. I'd never heard of a slasher film called Terror Train before.
That's a good film.
It is. It's one of my favorite golden age slasher films. I think it's kind of underrated, actually. I think it deserves a little more attention.
Aye, it's one of those that's ignored in favour of like the bigger names.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you'd agree. I like the whole kind of claustrophobic aspect, the fact that it's on a train, there's nowhere to run to.
I
like the whole
isolation.
Yeah, I like the concept of the killer going from costume to costume as well. So the killers, well, it's weird, isn't it, really? Because in Terror Train, the killer's kind of hidden in plain sight. With the reveal of the killer at the end, you realise that the killer has actually been in front of your eyes quite a few times during the film. Did you see that reveal coming?
No, but I'm rubbish at these things. I must admit, I'm not very good when it comes to this.
I looked back and I'm like, do you know what? I should have seen it. I didn't see it coming, but
no, I'm pretty terrible when it comes to sussing villains out and whodunits.
Well,
I thoroughly enjoyed it. It didn't waste it. It didn't waste it.
Yeah, my ex-girlfriend was like Miss Marple and Poirot, like rolled into one man. Seriously, things would rarely get past her. And as soon as she saw the character that we're talking about, she was like, do you know what? That's a man. She goes, I bet that's the killer. Straight away in the first scene, that character was shown.
Oh, actually, there was one film that I did guess the identity of the killer, and that was Urban Legend.
Oh, Rebecca Gayhart's character, Brenda.
I paid attention to that one. I must have really made notes.
The thing is, though, they cheat. They very often cheat in films because there is no way the killer was a female. When you see the killer's costume, the killer was clearly played by a male, wasn't it?
Yeah, I know.
They always do that. They cheat. There's a slasher movie called Edge of the Axe, which is an American/Spanish production. It's an okay little slasher film. It was a TV movie originally. And the killer reveal in that film is so implausible because the lead character in the film, a girl, turns out to be the killer. She's about 5'1", 5'2", really petite, really slim. You look at the killer throughout that movie, they're like proper bulky.
I hate when they do that.
There is no, he is about 8 stone heavier than her. And I'm like, we're supposed to believe that she's the killer. She overpowered all of these fully grown men. And yeah.
I mean, you suspend your disbelief to a certain extent, but that's just really taking the Mickey.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I'll tell you another one I didn't see coming, and it's one of my favourite Golden Age slasher movies, actually, My Bloody Valentine. I didn't realise it was going to be Axel.
No, I don't think I did either. I don't think I did.
I thought it was Harry Warden. I thought it was the original killer, but as it gets near the end of the film and that, it turns out it's Axel. And that's a slasher movie that could have got a sequel. I know we're getting like a fan-made sequel soon called Valentine Bluffs, I think it's called. But My Bloody Valentine is one of them slasher films that was actually open for a sequel, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's been remade as well, hasn't it?
It has. What did you think to the remake?
Not great. It was okay, but preferred the original.
Yeah.
I mean, the original went out in 1981.
Yeah.
With the Funhouse.
Yeah.
We hope there's a Funhouse. And I can remember my brother and his then girlfriend went to see it, and they told me all about it. And I thought the Funhouse would have been the better of the two. I love the Funhouse, right? But I was expecting them to say, "Oh, the Funhouse was the best one," but they said no, it was My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah, Do you know what? They're very different, aren't they? They're very different. I know they both fall within the slasher category, but the Funhouse isn't kind of your traditional slasher movie, is it?
No.
It's one that does kind of stand out. I think thanks largely to kind of the environment as well. I do like the whole Funhouse carnival setting for that film.
Love it.
I really do. Because you actually spend around 35 minutes, 40 minutes before it actually gets you to the Funhouse. You actually spend quite a long time, good portion of the film at the carnival, don't you?
That's right. Introducing the characters.
But I love the opening. I love the opening, how it pays homage to Psycho and Halloween in that one opening.
Yeah, very clever. The
POV through the mask and the shower.
And again, what does that do? That's a nod to Halloween.
Yeah. POV shot.
Subjective camera again. Only he doesn't actually go through with it.
No. We get like the Psycho, but it turns out to be a plastic knife in that. And there's also kind of a giallo aesthetic, if you want to look at it like that. Because when the killer's wearing, whenever I see black gloves in a horror movie, a slasher film, I always think giallo, because black gloves have become almost synonymous with it.
Yeah. You expect Dario Argento to be wearing them.
Yeah. But no, I like both Funhouse and My Bloody Valentine. I think we talked about this before, but 1981 was the best year ever for slasher films. We had so many good slasher films coming out that year.
It was good, very good. The early 80s were like absolutely unbeatable.
Yeah. I think that another one I like is The Prowler, which I think has got like some of Tom Savini's best effects. The Burning as well. That's another one.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your thoughts on Happy Birthday to Me?
Oh God, I just thought that was like a Scooby-Doo ending. That was ridiculous.
Do you know what? The ending is very divisive. I myself personally, I don't really like the ending. I don't. Some people do, because it was like an unexpected twist, but
oh no, there's a twist, and I mean, you can have a good twist and a bad twist, and that wasn't a good twist.
I agree.
I mean, even the murders in that film, they were just trying to be too smart, because they went for something different. Because I think in the poster it said 6 of the most bizarre.
Yeah, and it actually shows one of the murders, but not strictly, because the character that's being killed is not the character in the film, but it's purely promotional art. But they're actually showing one of the killings.
That's right.
In the film.
Shish kebab.
Yeah. There is one death. I think the murders are actually quite memorable in that film. Saying that, I'm not sure if I can remember all 6, but there's 3 of them. There's 3 that I can remember, and I remember them being quite memorable. And there's one in particular that I think would make any man out there cringe, and that's the weightlifting one.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You're laying there doing your weights and somebody drops a weight onto your...
I know. My God, unthinkable.
That scene.
Oh, no, I suppose quite creative, but it went beyond. At the end, it just went completely and utterly nuts.
Yeah, I think the film was a little overlong as well.
Far too long.
I mean, most slasher films typically fit between kind of an 85 to 95 minutes, usually within that time frame. I'm pretty certain Happy Birthday to Me is around, I think it's about 1 hour 50.
I think it is. It's about 115 minutes in total or something.
Yeah, so it's just a little bit too long. There's a lot of padding in there. I don't mind it, but it's not one of my favorites or anything like that. I don't even like Final Exam. I know some people.
Oh, really that's the worst ever. That is my worst. I hate that film so much.
I don't get the appeal of it. I just find it the killing's bland, the killer's bland. It's just.
Oh, is there any appeal? Has it got its fans?
It does have fans. I know some people that rate that as one of the best slasher films of the golden age.
Oh my God, it's awful.
I don't want to lose any subscribers or anything here, but I mean, look, if people like it, fair enough. But it's not one that, no. Final Exam, Graduation Day, again, not really a big fan of that. That has a Psycho twist. Final Exam actually takes its cue from Psycho at the end, the big reveal.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were some greats. As we mentioned some of them. You had Halloween 2 as well, and Friday the 13th Part 2. But yeah, going into the 90s, like we said, Scream kind of breathed life into an almost dead subgenre.
It did. It definitely did.
Yeah. And what makes it stand out from all of the other slasher films that came out after it, I mean, I know it does some. I think it's okay. I think it's all right for what it is. And urban legend, I quite liked how that kind of like tried to be inventive, kind of unique kills in urban legends and all that. But Scream was kind of pushing things forward in a new way. And some of these slasher films that followed in its footsteps were kind of more going back to the old school kind of slasher films. That's what makes Scream stand out to me, because it was postmodern, it was clever. I Know What We Did Last Summer is very much a modern slasher film, but in the mold of an 80s slasher film.
Yeah, I think that's got more kind of teen appeal, I think.
What I Know What You Did Last Summer?
I think there's more of a kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I know
some
that people that... What's that?
What was that TV series? There was a TV series around about the same time.
Dawson's Creek.
Dawson's Creek, yeah. There was that.
Okay, yeah.
It felt like that. It felt like a kind of horror film version of Dawson's Creek or something,
Yeah. I mean, it was followed by a sequel, which again was very much kind of an 80s slasher film. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which has got to be like actually the title makes no sense. So it should actually be called I Know What You Did 2 summers ago, or I Know What You Did the summer before last. Because how can it be called I Still Know What You Did Last Summer if it's been 2 years that have passed now?
Yeah, that's 2 summers.
They didn't think that through, did they?
No, they didn't. But they shouldn't have made it. They shouldn't have bothered making it at all.
Scream was a success, and they were like, "Come on, they're making money now. They're making money." Even Urban Legend had a sequel, didn't it? What's that?
Ring the box office bell.
That's what it is. As soon as a film makes money, there's always the potential. There's always a very good chance there could very well be a sequel. I mean, look at Halloween H20. Michael Myers was decapitated. You'd think to yourself, do you know what? That's it. No.
Yeah.
We'll do another one. We'll make out that wasn't Michael Myers in the mask. It was a paramedic, had his larynx crushed. We'll get the audience to believe it, because most paramedics can go flying out of a windscreen and sit right back up again, can't they?
That's in real life.
Yeah. But I just want to quickly show this off, actually. Obviously, I did show you this, Pete. This is my holy grail now. I was tempted either that or Scream on Blu-ray. I weren't quite sure which one to get signed.
Well, I think you made the right choice.
You think so?
Yes. I think that's far more collectible.
Okay. Yeah, I really weren't sure. There was a lot of other things that I wanted to... I mean, I would love to meet Neve Campbell. I don't actually know if she does conventions to the UK at all. But I'd love to meet Neve.
Yeah, well. I think she'd be nice to meet. Yeah, she seems quite down to earth.
She does, yeah. And that, you remember, for a little while as well, we weren't even sure if she was going to even come on board for the 5th Scream film. I mean, she's one of them people as well that doesn't like horror films. She's not a horror fan.
No, she doesn't.
She didn't even want to do a horror movie.
Well, she made the right decision.
But I'm going to get you to place your bets now. Okay, Dewey, right. Gail, Sydney. Who's going to die in the next film? Do you think any of them three are going to get killed?
Yes.
Who's your money on?
Dewey.
I'm with you.
Right.
I'm completely with you on that.
Yeah.
Do you think more than one of them? Do you think Gail as well, or
potentially Gail as well? But I think Dewey definitely. Gail maybe. No, that might be going too far. But my money's on him.
On Dewey, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a really comical moment in Scream 3. Do you remember that bit where he's at the top of the stairs and Ghostface just looks at his knife and throws his knife and it's spinning and it just knocks Dewey out?
I know. Brilliant.
It was a Looney Tunes cartoon, honestly. That knife may as well have the words Acme on it.
Yeah. It was.
I'm with you. Actually, I'm going to say this. As excited as I am for the fifth screen, and I am very excited, if Dewey is not killed,
you'll be disappointed.
Yeah. And that's not because I don't like the character. I just don't feel as though some of these characters now really serve that much purpose anymore.
No, I think he's kind of run out of steam.
Yeah,
he's served his purpose now. I think he's outstaying his welcome.
So, Pete, if he doesn't die, we're going to riot, right?
Yeah, we'll have to put a letter of complaint. We'll start with that first, and then we'll riot. So,
yeah, we're not going to make any death threats or anything like that. We're just gonna riot, and
no, we won't round up a mob and say evil dies tonight.
Oh my God. No. Well, we're saving that for a later episode. Spoiler alert, evil dies tonight. I just wish I got £1 every time it was mentioned.
So I'd be a millionaire.
But yeah. Anyway, yeah, so we'll wrap this up. So I think it's safe to say we both love Scream. I personally think it's a great movie. I really do. I think it has a lot of rewatchability.
It's making me want to watch it tonight.
What's that?
It's making me want to watch it tonight.
Go for it, man. The world's your oyster. Go for it.
It's been a long time.
Had I not have seen it at the cinema 2 weeks ago, I'd probably watch it myself tonight, in all honesty. But I tell you what I am going to watch tonight. 1965's Repulsion, Roman Polanski.
Okay.
You've seen that, right?
I have indeed, yes.
Good film.
It's very bleak, very depressing. Yeah. So don't expect to be entertained by that one.
Oh no, I've seen it.
Oh, you've seen it before?
Oh, I've seen it like 4 or 5 times. Yeah. Oh no, I've seen the film quite. Yeah. I've seen all of Polanski's, all 3 films of his Apartment trilogy, Rosemary's Baby and The Tenant as well. I've seen them all many times.
Right. Well, God, you're going back for more then?
Yeah. What can I say? Yeah, with Repulsion, it's a slow burner, certainly. I think, I've said this many times before, psychological horror is very much an acquired taste. It really is. Not accessible to everyone, I don't think. But there is a movie, obviously, coming out next week, Last Night in Soho, very excited for. And somebody has told me, actually, that there are some echoes of Repulsion in there.
Yeah, it does look like it's like a nice blend of Polanski, Argento, Lynch. It seems to...
Exactly. I mean, seriously, what's not to love? Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Do you think you'll go and see that on the big screen? Do you think you'll go and see?
For sure. Yeah, cool. When it comes out.
Well, that'll be a future episode. We'll do that then.
Good. Okay,
definitely.
Great stuff.
Awesome. So, that's it for today's episode. We'll be right back. And so we'll do the next episode, I believe, tomorrow, which is probably going to be tomorrow or Thursday, Halloween Kills.
Yes, look forward to that.
Yeah. Evil dies tonight.
Evil dies tonight, or maybe it doesn't.
It's so going to become a meme, and I'd be surprised if there's not T-shirts out already.
I'm quite sure people are walking about with them right now as we speak.
Big John, Little John.
Yes, well, that was another one. Yeah, that was another one, closely followed by
Little John, Big John. I'm like, John, I can't get it. I know what your names are now. I'm gonna.
I know,
but yeah,
do you know that used to be a children's television program? Big John,
Little John.
Yes, look it up. Look it up on YouTube.
Oh no, I believe you.
Yes,
I will look it up though. I'm quite curious.
Well, you need to see it, to believe it.
There were definitely some comedic moments in that film that were like, I feel like there were some moments in there that were funny, that were unintentionally funny. But yeah, anyway, that's it for today. So thanks a lot to everyone that watched, and cheers, Pete, for being here.
Well, my pleasure.
And we'll be back again soon to haunt you and torment you. Take care.
Okay, take care.